Good morning, Jonna. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Arrow. I like your name very much.
It's a very weird name.
I've never met someone named Arrow.
Well, you being in the CIA and with all the different people that you have been, I mean, I look at it as being the other guy I am.
Well, you know, all the names in the CIA were fake names, so they don't really count.
What was it like to be a shapeshifter like that? Or did you see it as shapeshifting?
It could get confusing because you had different... You had different names for different reasons, and you had sometimes different documents for different reasons, and you'd end up maybe at a desk somewhere checking in or registering or whatever, and it was possible that you could briefly forget who you were. Yeah. And then that would be really embarrassing because there's really no place to go with that, except like, can I have my passport back? That actually happened once. To ask for my passport back, I had to wreck the piece of paper that I was working with. So I had an ink pen and I spilled ink all over the document and had to start over and ask for my passport back to remember who I was. Oh my God. This is like at 3 a.m. After about a 15-hour flight. So everybody forgave me. That's not a good beginning to an interview, is it?
Oh, it's perfect because, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that it's the real true beauty of what you do, because we all have these images of what CIA is, but we don't ever get the true story or what it was really like.
Well, we can work on that.
Yeah. That's why this book, what I love about this book is the fact that, first of all, perseverance is everything in this book. And it almost feels like that nothing got in your way. And if it did, it wasn't going to stop you.
Well, you know, there was a person in that book that got in my way. There was one man that I worked for who was kind of heart-stopping as far as I was concerned, because I didn't know what to do with him. It wasn't misogyny so much. It was just that he didn't like me. Mm-hmm. You know, and sometimes you meet people that you don't just viscerally don't like them. It's happened to me. Well, it happened to him. And because of that, it happened to me. So he wanted very much for me not to be working at that overseas place with him. And he tried mightily to move me out of there. That was the only big struggle I had in my career. I had a lot of small struggles, but this lasted a couple of years. This was tough.
See, now you know what it's like to work in radio.
That's great. Yeah, I persevered. You were talking about perseverance, and look where I took it. I did persevere. I came out of that intact, and everything seems smooth sailing afterwards. So perseverance is worth it.
Being that photographer and being in the CIA, I mean, that's a keen eye. That's your eye watching what other people are walking by. How do you trust what it is that you're seeing?
There's just extensive training at the CIA. Yeah. It seemed like when I wrote this book and actually started plotting my career, looking back at it, I spent an enormous amount of time being trained. They hired you because you had certain skills, and then they wanted to take them to the very edge of your limit to use those skills. With photography, there was just straight up photo training, and then because a lot of our cameras were unique, a lot of the techniques we used were unique, the concealment devices we put them in. There was something, for instance, called a hyperfocal distance. You could take an old 35 millimeter camera, and there was a way to manipulate the lenses so you would find the hyperfocal distance of that lens. It meant that whenever you picked up that camera and pointed it at something, it was in focus. You didn't have to do all that thing with the lens. You didn't have to zoom in and zoom in. Everything from 3 feet to infinity would be in focus. You learned how to do things like that. And once you kind of learn the mechanics of how it all works, you know, the photo part of it just became almost instinctive, how to take the pictures. And then it was a matter of what to take the pictures of. And sometimes how to take a picture without appearing to take a picture. And that would end up with maybe you had a small camera concealed in, if you were a woman, concealed in a fake pregnancy belly, and the pregnancy belly is only there to hold the camera, and you're shooting out through a button in your shirt, and the actuator is in your pocket of your jacket. And once you get all of that arranged, you could take great pictures walking down the street. Nobody knew you were taking pictures.
Wow. Wow. Did you ever look at a James Bond movie and say, no way, that wouldn't work? Why? Because I have done that and it didn't work.
All the time.
Oh, my God.
Mostly not saying it wouldn't work. I'm mostly saying things like, that's ridiculous. We would never even try that. But it's so wildly entertaining that you would forgive the people that made the movie because it was so fun to watch. You know, I was always like that with James Bond. I always forgave all the ridiculousness that was on the film, even some of the misogyny was on the film because it was so entertaining.
Yeah.
But there are other shows on TV, not film, not Bond, that are trying to be spy-themed shows. Homeland comes to mind, where I couldn't watch it because it was so wrong. I would turn it off. Like, and Homeland, what's her name? Carrie, who's kind of wild-eyed the whole time. We would have fired her the second week on the job. We'd say, we can't let you do this job because you look like you're on drugs. You act like you're on drugs.
Yeah.
But she was, a main character in the piece.
Wow.
Anyway.
Wow. What's very, very, very inspiring here is the fact that you got into Russia and you stole and encrypted that. You did your homework. And I love people who do their show prep and then they have to come up with an execution.
I have to correct you. It wasn't in Russia.
Oh.
But we went into a Russian compound.
Right.
It was Russian-owned property that I have to dance around that a little bit because of the CIA's Publication Review Board, who has these big Sharpies and they X out what I can't say. But we went into a Russian-owned property. You can figure out where we were if you read the book closely, and went into it would be called a chancery building, and went upstairs, these big open stairs, three flights, and took this machine that was bolted to the floor. We unbolted it after we blew open the door to get into it, and then we attached it to looked like what a Sherpa might use to climb one of those larger mountains. Attached it to this rope thing and lowered it down to the main floor and put it in a crate that we had faked with. We had counterfeited the crate. The crate looked like it had come in through immigration, through customs, but it had not. Put it in a truck, drove the truck to a garage, repainted the truck, put new license plates on the truck, drove it out of the country. That was a big operation, and I never could believe that the CIA let me write it down and publish it, but I did, and it was it's one of the most exciting things I was ever part of. That operation. It was me and a group of people. It wasn't just me. I was part of a team.
I was going to ask you about the editing process because I'm blessed with the opportunity to talk with a lot of the men and women who have served this nation in our forces, and they do talk about that, where they've got to let them look at it first, and then they'll release it. Was that a tough thing for you?
It can be tough, and I found Tony and I had written altogether. Now we wrote 4 books. This new book, In True Face, is number 5. We've had varying degrees of editing because our review board, the people on it change, and the idea of what's classified changes. They what you're saying, and
right.
They don't. They edit your book because they consider something to be classified, and you have a chance. You always have the opportunity to disagree with them, and if you disagree with them, you can have a conversation, and sometimes you can win that conversation. For instance, in this current book, I described checking into a hotel. I didn't say the city because they didn't want me to say the city.
Right.
But I did mention that there was a pink cape lying over a big suitcase in front of me in line, and that the man had some sparkles on his suit. And they said, "Oh, this is sounding like you're in Spain." I said, "Nope.
Oh my God.
It could be Portugal. It could be France. It could be Spain. It could be that whole southern tier of Europe. I am not saying that I'm in Spain." And they said, "Okay, you can keep it." Small victory, right? It's a small victory, but look, it's still front of my mind. I won that one.
What about the photographs? Did they have to have their say in that as well? Because first of all, I love black and white photographs, and these photos of you just out there in the world, it's like going through a gigantic picture book, and your imagination is writing a story.
I ran the pictures through them. There are a couple where some names, not names, faces are blurred.
Yeah.
But other than that, they didn't have a problem with photographs. And I loved being able to finally, kind of put them in. This book started as a memoir. It was going to be a straight up memoir, and the pictures of me made a lot of sense. As it grew and got bigger, it kind of incorporated a lot of women's experiences in the same scenario that I was in. The pictures also expanded a bit.
Wow.
There are other people in them.
Did you ever know where you were going?
I always knew where I was going.
Oh.
You don't mean getting on a flight and going to an airport. You mean in my career where I was going?
Basically, no, because once again, I'm tainted by Hollywood in the way that you're supposed to report at such and such place at such and such time. Don't ask where you're going, but you're going to be there.
No, that's all. That all sounds right, except for you don't know where you're going. I always knew where I was going. Sometimes I got there and I had to, like, I'd be in Paris and I'd sit there for 3 days waiting for this thing to happen,
mm-hmm.
sitting in an outdoor cafe thinking, I'm so lucky. This is such a great job. And then you had to get to work. So you didn't always know when, but I always knew where. I was never going somewhere that I didn't know where I was going.
Right. How do you plan for somebody who has gone rogue in the way of a jihad?
You become very, very afraid.
Oh my God!
They are the jihad people and the drug people were scary people because they had the drug people had so much money behind them that they would do anything. They would kill you. They would kill your children because the money made it worthwhile. The jihad people, they were propelled the same way, but by different motivation. That they were heaven bound, perhaps, if they could just get rid of you.
Yep.
And so they would shoot you without a thought. I mean, you only have to look at Israel today to see how the religious extremism can manifest, what it can turn into, unthinkable things. So when we started dealing with terrorism and narcotics, our business got scary.
Yeah.
And as a chief of disguise, my piece of the business got more and more important because I could protect you. I could keep you from being in the category that the jihadists would like to shoot. I would keep you from being in the category that the narcotics guys down in Bogota were worried about, so that I could save your life with a wig and some glasses. That's hyperbole, but I never said that before.
With as deep as you go into this book, do you find yourself on a lecture tour? Are you going to be on one?
I do a lot of talking anyway. I'm a board member, a founding board member of the International Spy Museum in D.C. And we have a lot of clients that come in, corporate clients that are doing conferences, whatever. I speak a lot at those things. But I also have a speakers agency, and I speak all over the country. I love doing it. I explain to people that the CIA folks are not villains,
mm-hmm.
that the organization does. I almost consider it God's work. I'm almost a jihadist for CIA if I think about it. We're collecting information on the plans and intentions of this country's enemies. Full stop. That's the job. What are they going to do? What's Putin going to do? What's that Korean guy? What's he going to do? What's China going to do? Where are their nuclear programs at these days? We want to get that information back to the people that make policy in Washington. It's an honest job, looking for the truth, bringing the truth home.
I can't imagine being in the CIA today with AI technology.
Well, I think the same thing. I'm and I'm not privy to what they're doing, but I'm constantly on the alert for huge new buildings to be going up. One of them is going to be the building that CIA will have to build to manufacture false identities. It's going to have to be like the Pentagon. The capability to do that is just going to be enormous.
Wow.
And artificial intelligence, I don't know, where does it end? Where is the edge of artificial intelligence? How do you know when you encounter it? For instance, this new book that I'm talking to you about, if you go online right now, you find another new book that I have written, except that I didn't write it. But it's been published. It's out there on Amazon. You can buy it for $11.95. It says Autobiography of Jonna Mendez. It's got my picture on the cover. I have nothing to do with that book.
Oh.
I've never heard of that book. It has me interviewed in the book. I never gave an interview. So that's AI out there in the public space. And it's, I don't know how many of those books they've sold, but it's a scary thought.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of the things that's scaring a lot of musicians and actors as well. And I mean, that's why I truly understood why the actors went on strike. And that was one of their main things, because we don't know who is stealing our voices and the way that we write.
Yeah. Well, my son introduced me to ChatGPT. I had to write a speech for a group, and I didn't know anything about the group. And my son came over and said, look, just push this button. That's ChatGPT. Just ask them, tell them who you're going to speak to, and ask them what would be a good approach to speak to that group. And it produced a speech for me. And I didn't use it, but I used a piece of it.
Yeah.
And I could have kept going and probably had ChatGPT manufacture the speech entirely, which is a scary idea.
When you collected information, you had to store it somewhere. I'm a daily writer. There's a lot, because I love to observe the world and I love to really put my research into these books. But the problem is, though, is that what happens to it, and what's going to happen to your stuff, Jonna, when your generation is gone?
I can't answer your question. I've discovered as a photographer. Mm-hmm. I was a photographer. I was a photographer at CIA. I was a fine art photographer after I left, and I've discovered if you want your images to last, for instance, Tony Mendez, my husband, was a painter. We made colored slides of all of his paintings. If I don't print those slides, they will cease to exist.
Yep.
If I don't print all my old negatives, those pictures will never be seen again. And even today, anything I photograph, if I don't get a hard copy print of it, the technology is going to change, and then it'll change again, then it'll change again, and those images it'll all disappear.
Yep.
Just be glad you don't work for the National Archive, because this is what they are looking at daily.
Wow.
How to maintain all these records, this huge trove of records, how to keep them.
Yeah. Well, I can't thank you enough for this book, because I do believe it's going to inspire many, many women to take a chance, even with their local police departments, because this is about community, it's about serving, and it's about giving back.
It is. That's and at the end of it, if I ever get to the end of it, I keep thinking I am, but I'm not. At the end of it, I think you can be proud of what you accomplished, and that's kind of a goal.
Absolutely. Please come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you.
I love talking to you. Thank you. I'd like to do it again.
You be brilliant, okay?
Thank you so much.